Hey everybody, welcome to Guided Listening today. I'm Jeff Antoniuk. Today we're going to listen to one of the songs off the most famous jazz album of all time, Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. So we're going to listen to Flamenco Sketches. So this is the mysterious tune on the album because the rules of it are a little different, and that keeps people from playing it live. How many times have I played the song So What or Freddie Freeloader, some of the other tunes, Blue and Green from that album, hundreds of times on gigs. We can call any of those songs. A good jazz musician will know them. We can play them. Flamenco Sketches, it's a sketch. Like there's not even a melody there. So it's one that gets avoided. It's an interesting one. So let's listen to it. It's so lovely. It's so beautiful. But let's sort of talk about what's going on behind the scenes. And there have been some fantastic books written about this recording session, and read one of them, years ago when it came out. So I'm not expert on the Kind of Blue recording session. I'm going to listen to it and give you my impressions and observations as it goes by. So many of you are going to know a lot about sort of what went on behind this song, perhaps. So we'll get into that in a second. I want to ask you to think about June and July of the year 2024, the year we're in. So in June, we have the Saxophone and Improvisation Summit coming up in Edmonton, Canada. And then in July, next month, we have the Jazzwire Summer Summit, our 21st year here in the Washington, D.C. area. And so those events are both built for adult learners. So we do have some scholarships for the Summer Summit for people 16 to 21. So we have a handful of scholarships. So I'd encourage you to think about that if that's you, or if you know a young person who's thinking about pursuing music and would be interested in applying for a scholarship. But both those workshops are built for adults. I'm talking about people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Those are the people who we are talking to, and the workshops are built for those folks. So for the Summer Summit, I think we're sold out for guitar and piano. We may have one spot left. So if that's you, like now, today, the moment you're hearing this, write us and let's see if we can get you in. We may have 4 horn spots left: trumpet, trombone, flute, saxophone. And we've got some bass and drum spots left. So they're going quickly, and we're like 4 months out, right? So now is the time to think about July. The workshop up in Canada, again, it's based for saxophone. So all day long is saxophone players, but starting at noon and the whole rest of the day, really the last 2/3 of the day will be for all instruments: rhythm section players, brass players, other woodwind players, for us to get together and work on this music in Canada. So again, please share this information with musician friends you have around the world. We always have people come from around the world for these workshops. So consider joining us this year, and please let your friends know who may be interested. So let's get into Flamenco Sketches. Now, on the album, I think it may have Miles Davis's name beside it, but most people understand and agree, like, yeah, Bill Evans, probably came up with this, but we're not here to litigate that, I suppose. The idea here is, first of all, no melody. So what you hear as the melody is Miles playing something. It begins with this kind of vamp, or Bill Evans sort of playing back and forth between these two keys, which harkens back to a recording of his called Peace, Peace. So, okay, so that was sort of borrowed and repurposed a little bit. And there are 5 tonalities, and the tonalities are this: C major, then A flat 7 or A flat mixolydian, then B flat major, then we go to D Phrygian, or we could say 5th mode of G harmonic minor, sort of. The different musicians treat it a bit different, and then goes to G minor at the end. So there's 5 topics of conversation, and the musicians are allowed to play as long as they want on each one. So they have to give a cue going from one to another. And we know that because we can hear one time when I think it's Paul Chambers moves a little early to the next chord, but Bill Evans doesn't move with him. So, and that's one of the hard things about playing a song like this where the form isn't set and sort of mechanical and like clockwork. After 4 measures, we change to such and such. Here, it's this very wide open thing. The song is in time, but that makes it interesting. But that also adds a humanity and a mystery and ooh, what's going to happen next moment of a good conversation, talking to somebody new and fascinating, and you don't know where it's going to go in a cool way. Well, that's kind of what's happening here. So it's very interesting. And so each soloist has these 5 topics of conversation. And of course, we can imagine Coltrane might say something different on B flat major than Cannonball or Miles might say. So it's really interesting to listen to. So, so let's jump into it. This is Flamenco Sketches. And here's that introduction you may know from Bill Evans, and Bill actually borrowed it, I believe, from a great show tune. So this is that C major tonality. And this, we know this is the melody, but it's not. It's Miles improvising over C major. Ah, there's our second tonality, A flat 7. So now notice what Paul Chambers is doing on the bass. 2, 3. So he changed it up that time, but he's playing 5-1. There's our third tonality, 5-1, 2, 3. So Paul is basically doing this 5-1 in each key, which is kind of good because we need some help as a listener to know what to listen for. Here's that interesting Phrygian sound. And Miles almost always uses these 3 notes: root, flat 2, flat 3. That gives the sound of that kind of cool flamenco Phrygian sound. He's just, he's mostly playing those 3 notes. Yes, he's playing a couple others, but the vibe, he knows the vibe, and he knows how to get it. It's fascinating. And now, there's our 5th tonality, G Dorian or G minor. So do you hear Jimmy Cobb there? Well, so he's playing the brushes and he's adding just this kind of connective tissue between the instruments. It's a cool way to think about one of the roles of the drums is it creates a sound that connects things, whether it's brushes, whether it's the sustain of a ride cymbal, whether it's the hi-hat partially open. Drums are about creating the connective tissue in the sound. Coltrane. This is his 3rd tonality now. And the length of time he spends on each chord is a little different than what Miles did. And then here's this 4th sound, this cool Phrygian sound. And those are the 3 notes that Miles liked. 1, flat 2, flat 3. So Train is adding some extra notes. Miles stayed very with the modes, like perfectly with the modes. And I think Train is adding a couple other notes. Is that allowed in modal playing? Are we allowed to add some extra notes? I suppose. I suppose. That's the end. And now, into the next solo. And again, listening to Paul Chambers. Staying with that bass line. Listening to Jimmy Cobb. It hasn't gone to the... Well, do we hear the cymbal? We do. So he's lightly on the cymbal at this point. Very Cool. And we hear Cannonball playing some of his bebop language in here. Second tonality. And so, so that's a standard bebop thing that Cannonball and others would play. So on this album, Kinda Blue, Cannonball is playing less truly modal, certainly, than Bill Evans and Miles. Those two guys win, because they did a lot of it together. Train, less than those guys, and I'd say Cannonball less than Train. Cannonball's playing great bebop over these tonalities. Are you upset? I'm not. Sounds amazing, right? But his approach is different, and I guess we could say his comfort level. Like, modal music didn't really exist. Cannonball's just trying to figure out, how do I do this, right? He had his tools, he used his tools. And again, here's that flamenco sound, the Phrygian mode. And this is probably the most energetic the band has been, volume-wise, right? We've got, I'm trying to tell, I think it's brushes on the cymbal, whether it's brush or stick. And Paul Chambers still staying with that 5-1 motion in the bass, but embellishing it more, right? Putting some more sort of rhythm behind it. And again, the period of time that Cannonball stayed on some of those chords was different than Miles and Train before him. Cool. First tonality. Staying on that first tonality. Miles moved on at that point. Bill Evans didn't. And Bill is staying very diatonic to these modes. Modes are just fancy word for scales, topics. Now we move into the second one. And so he's adding some nice chords and dyads, two-note motions of thirds and things like that. Okay, on into the third topic now. And we hear that sort of more insistent time from Jimmy Cobb that we weren't hearing behind Miles, certainly at the beginning, and I don't think even really behind Coltrane so much. But how simple. It's literally quarter notes, right? Connecting with Paul Chambers. So it wasn't about chops, the zillion things Jimmy Cobb could be doing right now otherwise. And I'm sort of fascinated by, was he told to play this simply on this album, or was that his musical instinct of what this musical setting needed? I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised that either were the case. Jimmy Cobb, amazing musical drummer, and Miles and Bill Evans having a sense of the atmosphere this should be. But Miles was famous for giving his bands either no direction or like really confusing Yoda-like direction, so who knows. So this is the Head Out, which isn't a head, it's not a melody, it's not what Miles played at the beginning because he improvised that, now he's improvising this. So we're getting the shape of like head in, solos, head out, not with an actual melody or head, but texturally, the texture of Miles playing at the beginning and now Miles plays at the end makes us feel like there's this bookend arrangement, like he's wrapping it up. And he is, right? So fascinating, right? How this can feel like the melody out, but it's not. It's just another solo. And this is that Phrygian sound, the fourth topic of discussion. And Miles stays on it longer this time. I think he just did 4 measures on the way in. He's doing, you know, certainly we're into our 7th measure here. And Okay, so we moved on now to that fifth topic. And this ritardando, where you heard those quarter notes from Jimmy Cobb, slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. Not sure if the band knew they were ending there. I mean, right? I mean, they just kind of read each other's minds, like, you know, Miles played at the beginning, Miles is playing at the end, everyone's soloed. Well, not everyone soloed. We didn't have Paul Chambers or Jimmy Cobb on the drums solo, but I think they kind of could tell that that was what was happening in this moment. So amazing, right? Like a really, in the history of jazz, quite a different approach to how we play. Usually we're playing over a form, a song form, X number of measures that gets played over and over and over again, right? Playing football, we play in the form of that rectangle. Playing hockey, right? We play in the rink. When the ball goes outside the lines, when the puck goes over the boards, stop. We're not playing the game anymore. Let's restart. Here, there's no boundaries, right? There are boundaries. There was a tempo, for sure. There are boundaries. We had 5 topics of conversation, not 4, not 6, and they were specific topics, but how long we got to do it, right? So this is really, you know, very different. And as I said, how many times have I played this on a gig? Maybe somewhere between 0 and 1 times. Because it's different. Not that the musicians I'm playing with tonight couldn't do it, and so maybe I'll take this like piece of paper with like 5 scales written on it and give it to them, and we'll give it a try. But it's just kind of so different. And it's fascinating to me that it is on the best-selling album of all time. So just because we do something different and frankly weird and atypical and a little freaky, when you're Miles Davis, it turns out you can make that like really work and actually sell a lot of albums. So yay, Miles. Always yay, Miles. All right, everybody, that was cool. So in the guided listening, I know I don't know if we've done all of the music like over the years of doing these guided listenings. I'm not sure if we've done all the tunes. I'm going to check it out. And if there's one I missed, we'll make sure to get to it shortly. But you know, just such an important album, such great playing. So I'm glad that we got to Flamenco Sketches. And again, the reminder to think about your summer, think about your development as a player, and what you want to get out of this year with you and your instrument. And I think one of these 2 Jazzwire workshops could be really helpful. The Saxophone and Improvisation Summit in Canada, June 22nd and 23rd, and the 21st year in a row of the Jazzwire Summer Summit here in the DC area, and that's July 24th through 27th, 2024. Make it to the website, check it out, and I hope I'll get to work with you there. Take care.